Everybody, welcome back. I'm Louise Edington again, Cosmic Owl Astrology. Probably see me in a few videos that I'm recording today be in this orange top because it's Taylor Swift Friday. So it's the 3rd of October and 13 is her number, and she's released a new album, and I've already listened to it 3 times on the walk to and from my boxing class this morning and beyond. And I'm off to the launch party this afternoon. So I'm getting these videos out of the way before I go and just enjoy myself. And this is going to be a theme of this video. So this is a video about the upcoming full moon that's on the 6th. And I will look at the chart in a minute, but as usual, of course, I have pulled a card for the full moon. This is the card, the 10 of discs, and this is I Am Perspectives about the spiral of life. So we'll do a full reading on that card in a little while, and we'll look at the chart. But before I dive in, please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a thumbs up, leave me a comment. All of these things help the video get seen more and shown more on the tube of the U. And also, if my book series in astrology is doing really well, and if you have a copy already, I would love more reviews on Amazon, but if you don't, then go buy it. I'm going to be doing a couple of presentations on this, one for Houston Astrological Society, which is on Zoom, and then for Kepler College in December, that's also on Zoom. And Kepler College is a really big one. I'm really excited about that. And in the new year, I'm actually going to offer a workshop on Ceres. So we go into even greater depth on it and look at Ceres in your charts. Okay. Oof. What life's crazy at the moment, right? So let's have a look at this chart for the full moon. First of all, I'm going to try and make this video a little bit shorter than my usual ones because I'm so flipping busy. Now look at this. This is the full moon. It's at 14 degrees 8 minutes of Aries and opposing the sun at 14 degrees 8 minutes of Libra. It's largely an aspected moon in terms of major aspects. It is in a wide square to Jupiter. It's also in a kind of a trine to Vesta, wherever Vesta's gone. Oh, sorry. Yeah, the moon is trine Vesta by 4 degrees, but Vesta's an asteroid, so it's these are not the strongest aspects. It's kind of close to Ceres, but they're moving away from each other, Ceres in Aries. So really, to my mind, this full moon is not making very major aspects, which for me makes this point, this opposition, even more potent in the middle of all the other things that are going on. So we'll talk about all of that in a moment. But other things I do want to point out is that on Monday, and I've done some of this in my October video, and I'll repeat them in my week ahead video. This is the first full moon after the eclipses. We had that new moon solar eclipse at 29 Virgo. This is the full moon 2 weeks later. But the nodes are still at the same degree that they were at through the eclipse season. So we're really still under that eclipse energy. It's all emerging and everything is really shifting and changing, and perspectives are shifting, and the world out there seems like a very unsafe place, but I promise you good things are coming. I'm not the only one that thinks so. But back to this full moon. So we'll look at all of this. We'll look at the energy of the chart and we'll talk a little bit about the aspects. But as I mentioned, again, it's really, not making very many strong aspects. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is that this is at 14 degrees and I am a 14-5 life path number. So It's a number I know really well. So it's said to be the number of karmic debt. Okay, first of all, this is saying that past energies or past lives or whatever are have bringing the lesson of overcoming a lack of self-control and discipline, where freedom may have been abused or overindulged, and it's kind of a misapplication of energy. And so this really resonates for me. The it's a combination of a 1 plus 4 equals 5. So a 5 is a number of change, of freedom and adventure and curiosity and change and adaptability and drawn to new horizons and change and adventure. And so, you know, we can see that perspectives are shifting. I even got that from the card. And we are seeking true freedom. People are beginning to kind of wake up to things as a whole, collectively. And you might find that yourself too. The combined meaning of 14.5 is about balancing freedom and discipline. That makes me cackle when I see that in relation to my own life, because I was always lacking in discipline very much as a youngster. But it's about overcoming patterns, okay, recurring challenges in relationships, careers, or collectively. How have we been trying, you know, these recurring challenges and patterns? Where do we keep trying the same thing over and over and expecting different results? Now we're being asked to shift and change and move into a place of different perspectives and trying different things, okay, to face life's challenges. So there's a huge potential with 14.5 for transformation, okay, and personal growth and collective growth. And that's been my life path, because life path is a 14.5. And this is about embracing the higher potential of the self, the world, and collective. So let's have a look at Aries. Okay, so Aries has been a big focus this year in so many ways. Saturn and Neptune both moved into Aries. They are both going to move back into Aries later and join at 0 Aries. We had a Venus and Mercury retrograde together from Aries back into Pisces, endings, beginnings, and the current Venus star point from March the 22nd, when Venus and the Sun were conjunct in the middle of her retrograde, was at 2 Aries, and we are under that right now for 9.5 months, but also for the greater cycle as well of 19 months and beyond. And we've got Chiron and Eris in Aries. I've also got on the chart Okiroi, which is Chiron's daughter and Chariklo's daughter. She's got this seer quality. So we've really been focusing. There's been a big focus on this Aries. Now, Aries is pioneering, and is adventurous, can be aggressive, but is very ardent and passionate, very assertive, but can be pushed too much as well. But Aries is also courageous and bold, and very confident and self-assured. And my take on this focus on the Aries energy and the collective of where we are is stepping into the key phrase for Aries, which is I am. It's getting to know thyself really well, stepping into that center. I always think of Aries as like the rod. Saturn is the skeleton, but Aries, I think, is kind of the rod that goes up the middle, the core, the center of yourself. Very straight, knowing yourself, but then how do you operate in the world from that sense of I am? And without going into major sidetracks with quantum science. Quantum science more and more is showing that we are kind of just a conscious being aware of itself, and how we respond to everything out there is how we do everything, and how we experience and co-create the world. Then we have the opposite sign of Libra. So Libra is, we have the I and then we have the we. Libra is the sign of the we. Libra is balance, harmony. It's the scales. It's balancing the I within the we. It's about adjustment, adaptation again. But it's also, in more mundane matters, about aesthetic, art, relationships, and charm, but balance, justice. I said balance several times. Justice, harmony, and does have a bit of a fear of confrontation, and likes to be pleasing. But I like that Aries Libra axis, the I within the we. It's learning how to really know and understand yourself, and putting that first, so that you are more able to operate within the we. And then we have the moon, which is our emotions and the people in many ways as well in mundane astrology. But the moon's in Aries. The moon in Aries is really about that self-care, putting yourself first, loving yourself first. If you think of the moon being the emotions, then the sun is our very core. It's our ego, with a little e, that healthy ego, which we cannot live without. We all have it. And so, the moon facing the sun in Libra is saying, bring that emotional sense of self-love and self-understanding into your very essence and core, and coming from that place of love for others amongst the we. That's the essence of this full moon, in my humble opinion. Now, I did mention that it's widely square Jupiter. That's expanding the energy of this. Jupiter's in the sign of the moon as well. And so this is really about expanding first into self-love and shining a big light on where you are not doing that. Getting to know yourself, getting to put yourself first, getting to put your oxygen mask on first. It's the primary message of this time, really, is of kind of creating this intimacy from the inside out, to quote the internal family system of therapy, which is all about learning to create intimacy from the inside out by learning to love yourself first. Okay, so astrology is basically internal family systems, but this is the big message of this time. You kind of know your relationships are less healthy. You are more unlikely to operate from a place of love and healthy embracing of the collective consciousness if you don't love yourself first. So this is the essence of this full moon. The aspect to Jupiter expands it. The aspect to Vesta in Sagittarius, the inner flame of focus, commitment, and devotion, is asking you to find out the truth. In Sagittarius, is asking you to find out the truth of who you are inside, shining a big old light on it. And there's very few other aspects, to be quite honest. So this is a real big focus. The sun is saying, this is the path forward, and stop relying on thinking anybody else can kind of help you with that, or do it for you. Rather, people can help you, support you, of course, but nobody can do it for you. Nobody else can make you love yourself. Okay, this is the path of growth learning to understand yourself at a deep level, accepting that you're human, and learning to love every bit of you. That doesn't also mean trying to be the higher energy of all the energies, but it's about being less reactive. Mars can also be quite reactive, right? Sorry, Aries can also be quite reactive. And speaking of Mars, the guide for the sign of Aries is Mars, and Mars is in its own sign of Scorpio. It's also kind of widely making an adjustment aspect to this moon. And Mars in Scorpio really is about getting to the root of who you are, your essence, your empowerment, your inner goal, digging deep and wading through all those layers of self-protection and self-preservation that you've probably had to do to arise kind of out of those shadows into a more whole and healed human being. Now, one thing I will say before I move on to the symbols and the card, because that's all I'm going to say about the astrology, because that's the big message of this, is that if we look at the chart for Washington, D.C., which is where I set the chart, the ascendant is 14 Cancer, which happens to be the sun of the USA. That's all I'm going to say, but the ascendant is the sign that's rising. This is probably about learning to heal yourself and then all start to come together from that place of intimacy from the inside out. We're more able to be intimate with each other if we do our healing, but you can only do yours. You cannot make anybody else do it. I'm not going to go on about the USA chart anymore. All right, so I'm going to read the symbols and then I'm going to read what the book says, the amazing book for that card. So Aries 15, I actually think I'm going to look at the Sabian symbol first. And so funny spirals and weaving are coming up again, and my new website is all about all spirals and weaving, and we are in a spiral universe. Our DNA is a spiral. We are in a galaxy that is a spiral galaxy, spiraling around other galaxies that are all spiraling around other things. Basically, the cosmos is a spiral codex. So hold that thought when we look at the card. So the Sabian symbol for this, though, is an Indian weaving a blanket. James Burgess says this is living more and more as a realized being and sanctifying life itself. Okay. He says, finding an inner balance of polarities, we are raised into cosmic consciousness. At first, only momentary, we revisit this higher state repeatedly, holding it for longer periods. Mystics metaphorically refer to this as being robed in the universe, weaving a seamless robe or spiritual vesture. Becoming a unique being of light, this is the fulfillment of our desire to differentiate and express ourselves entirely creatively. So you are literally kind of weaving the blanket of the self, right? Okay. You know, there's much more I could say about that, but I kind of feel that kind of sums up the message for this full moon in many ways. But I'm going to read the John Sandbacher's symbols too. Aries 15 again. His Omega symbol is an hourglass in which the sand has become stuck. And he said this is transforming and inspired. The degree angel for it is Hariel, which is long range vision and purification, cleansing out anything that stops you stepping into that being a self-realized, being a realized being. He says you are able to transcend time, that is, get beyond its compulsions. This allows you to go deeply into whatever calls your attention and to experience the timelessness of the moment. By looking beyond time, you can bring the feeling and vibration of eternity into whatever you do. Herein lies the power of waiting, the power of stopping to make space for the light to enter. The Chandra symbol for this degree is a human with pointed ears. I think of Spock, sorry. This is another way of stopping the flow of time by an acute listening. The points of the ears point to the sky and can hear angelic voices and cosmic messages coming into the earth plane. The messages are timeless. The ears hear into the heart of the universe, into the message that is deep within the message. That's all I'm going to read on those. That's wild. All right, so I'm going to read the card and then get this off to you, or get it scheduled. And then I'm probably going to record the week ahead too. But here we go. The card, 10 of discs again. Look at her labyrinth within. This is your center. This is that Scorpio energy I talked about where Mars is. Oh, I'm putting my thumb up apparently. But anyway, this is just the image is telling you where to focus your energy on this lunation, right? So, reminder, it says this is the spiral of life and I am perspectives. But I want to read you a quote from Jung. The spiral in psychology means that when you make a spiral, you always come over and over the same point where you have been before, but never really the same. It is above or below, inside, outside, so it means growth. And there's another quote here, then I'm going to read you the whole passage. We are not going in circles, we are going upwards. The path is a spiral. We have already climbed many steps, and that's by Hermann Hesse. A solid ground has given you security and perhaps privilege. There is great satisfaction here, but you may have been ignoring your inner life. Look back and reflect upon your journey, the ups and downs, the progressions and regressions, your successes and failures, your love, joy and loss. Do any of your cycles occur and repeat over and over again? If so, such rhythms may be causing you continuous conflict. We can all benefit from changing our cycles into a spiral formation, which allows us to step up onto another level and not feel trapped that we are in the same place once again. Old patterns will fade, changes can be put into place, and we don't feel the stagnation anymore. We are all part of the natural world that rarely does straight lines, but is abundant with spirals that shape our DNA and our universe. Life is never a straight line or a circle. Life is a spiral which shapes our path and helps us to continually view things from totally different perspectives. We understand, we grow more, we move on. This is a wonderful life. And it truly is if you embrace it. Okay, so do whatever you need to do, but I will say that one practice that worked for me was changing my perspective on the life out there, to know that I could only change myself and come from that place of intimacy and essence and finding joy and operating from joy, to quote a friend of mine. So I hope that inspires you